The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Step outside of your comfort zone. See the world with a whole new perspective. Join us and experience the unexplained on the Paranormal View.
And welcome everybody right here to the Paranormal View on the Para X Radio Network. I want to thank everyone for being with us tonight. Those listening in the chat room and those listening from around the world, we appreciate each and every one. Tonight we've got a great show lined up for you, and be very interesting, I am quite sure. And we have with us tonight Barbara Duncan.
Happy May Day, everyone.
Oh, May Day, huh? Is that a good May Day or a help me May Day?
That could be either one.
And we have with us Tabby Cat Gash.
How you doing, everybody?
And we have with us Jeffrey Gould.
Hello, and welcome, and happy Beltane, actually.
And I didn't think to ask which one of you two was going to do it, but I assumed that Jeff has all the info on the guest.
Usually. It's only been, 11 years?
No, it was something like that. I just wanted to make sure. So, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest, and then we can get started.
Exactly. Well, our tonight's guest is Denise Pridemore. She's host of the weekly radio show, The Paranormal Pride. Denise is also working on many other paranormal projects. She's originally from Baltimore, and goodness, I still miss that aquarium, which is so awesome. And now she lives in the Kansas City area. She and her husband, Ron, loves traveling, and Denise experiences the paranormal pretty much everywhere, wherever they go. So Denise and Ron were tour guides for the infamous Atchison, Kansas Sallie House, and they are volunteers for the beautiful McPike Mansion in Alton, Illinois. So welcome, Denise Pridemore.
Oh, thank you so much. Couldn't have said that better myself.
Well, now, it's
Jeff does good bios.
It's interesting that you do this place called the McPike House. I hadn't heard of it before. So why don't you tell us about it and what kind of activity goes on there?
Well, the McPike Mansion, in all honesty, I found out about it back in 1994. I was watching one of these I had this 6 VHS tape thing called Ghost Stories. And it was on there. And I told Ron, I said, isn't Alton, Illinois right across the river from Florissant, Missouri? And he goes, yeah. And I said, do you know where this place is? And he said, no. He goes, but I used to go over there all the time because you could drink when you were 18 at that time in Illinois. So that was the big thing is for him that's the only reason he would go over to Alton back then. Well, years later, after our kids were a little bit older, we actually went over to Alton to check out, the haunted stuff, because by this time we found out that we were both interested in haunted places. And so we're looking all around trying to find this place. And finally, we find it. And when we get there, there's this big, huge truck, just trailer there that says Ghost Lab on it. Okay. We had never heard of Ghost Lab. It wasn't a TV show that anybody knew about at the time. And so we get there, and I get out of the car, and I just kind of walk up to the first person I see, who happened to be Brad Kling. I didn't know that at the time, and he kind of got very irritated, and I didn't know. I didn't even know I was at the right place. Okay, and I told him, I said, I'm just trying to find out if this is McPike Mansion. I said, it looks like you guys are doing something here. I said, I don't want to interfere. And by the time I got done talking to him, he acknowledged it was McPike Mansion, and then asked me if I wanted to come and check out the place with them. And I said, no, thank you. You guys are doing stuff, So once we found out where it was, we made arrangements to come back Labor Day to do a tour and a cellar session is what they called it, a dark cellar session. And all I knew about it at the time was that it was close by where my husband's family lived. So we went, and it happened to be me, Ron, our daughter, who is only about 10 at the time, and a bunch of maybe 8 people that were there from Chicago. And we actually ended up becoming friends with all these people at, that night. We had a really interesting time. And my daughter, while she was in the basement, she actually had what she thought was maybe a panic attack. Yes, it was dark and all that stuff, but she said she felt like somebody was up close against her, was what she felt. And Sandy Little Lizard, who is the medium that does the basement sessions, told her that it was probably Mary. She had died from a heart attack. She never lived in the house, but her husband had bought the property just before she died, and that this is where her family was, so they figured that it had to be Mary. And while we were there, I kept feeling like there was somebody on my lap near me. And what's strange is we went out to eat before we got there. And when we did, my husband made a big deal about making sure that I put my debit card back in my wallet. I had a clamshell wallet, which means you had to turn the little tabs to open it so you could get stuff in and out. And it's because I was always throwing my card just in my purse and not really worrying about it. Okay. So I'd always have to dig through my purse to find my card. But we made a big deal, me putting it in there and me closing it, because I got tired of being yelled at. And so we go to this event and all this stuff, and we didn't know about this other part until after we left, but it kept feeling like somebody was on my lap. And I told my husband, I said, it feels like something's messing around in my purse. And the only thing I had in my purse was green tea gum. Not something that kids would like, but there were 2 spirit children that happened to die in the home, related to the McPike family. And so they, I told the kids, if there's anything in my purse that you want, go ahead and take it. It won't bother me at all. And we got pictures of orbs and stuff all around my legs. Of course, back then, I didn't know that orbs could possibly be dust or water. So now I know that, but back then I didn't. But it coincided with feeling like somebody was sitting on my lap, which is kind of odd. But when we left, we go to McDonald's down the road to get a drink, and I can't find my debit card. It's not in my wallet. We had made a big deal about that, and I'm having to dig through my purse to find the darn card. And my daughter's going, I saw you put it in there, because we paid cash for the event. And if we pay cash, Ron does that because he always has cash. I never have cash. So it was just very strange that I felt like somebody was messing around in my purse, and then I can't find my debit card. I found it. It was in the very bottom of my purse underneath everything else. And so it was very, very strange. But a lot of the things that happen there are people will see colored lights, a lavender light, a white light. You'll see shadows that are what they always say is blacker than black. You'll feel breezes, and there's no way for a breeze to get into the wine cellar. Let's see. We'll have people will feel people touching them when there's nobody next to them, or people are stating that they're not touching them. Things like that. It's one of those hauntings that's not negative unless you listen to the local radio station, and then it's negative. But we've never had anything negative happen there. One of the things that we've had happen to us was one time there was like 40 people in the cellar. We were all sitting in our chairs, because it's that dark. You can't get up and walk around without probably landing on someone. And there's me and Ron sitting on one side of me, and then my daughter or me, then my daughter, my other daughter, and my daughter's girlfriend. We're sitting in a line, and all of a sudden I look down and I can see my hands clear as day. And the thing is it's so dark in there you can't really see anything in front of. I mean, you can hold your hand right in front of your nose and you're not going to see it. But all of a sudden I look down and I can see my wedding rings on my hand and clear as day. And not only could I see it, my husband saw it, and my kids saw it. He thought he was seeing things, he just said. And because all he can see is me moving my hands back and forth, I'm kind of moving them in disbelief that I can see them. But I look, and there's this shaft of light going up, not to the ceiling, but just going up from my lap. And he yells out to everybody, do any of you see this shaft of light on my wife's lap? And nobody could see it except for our family. And I told him, I said, I don't know. And as soon as I said, I don't know, it was gone. And my daughter says, somebody pinched my knee. And, well, her butt. I thought she said knee. He says butt. But it was funny. When we got done, I told Ron, I said, I got to call your cousin. He goes, why? I said, it was your aunt. I said, she's pissed about something. And so I called, and his cousin says, how did you know that we were fighting? I said, I didn't. Your mother does. So the pinch in the butt told us it was his aunt, because she was always messing with our daughter, always pinching our daughter's butt every time she saw her. So, and it was her attitude. I mean, you could just feel her attitude from Ron's aunt. So one of the things at McPike Mansion is a lot of times, well, it's with almost any place, that the spirits that are with you sometimes make an appearance at a place where you wouldn't think they would be, because they're with you, not with the location. So, and I tell people that phenomena is, you've gone to a haunted location, you want to have a paranormal experience, and your spirits feel like it's okay to come out and talk to you there. But a lot of times those spirits are misconstrued as being spirits of the location that you're at, when they're really the spirits that are with you all the time, and you just didn't even notice it because you're not paying attention.
Now, you think it's the location that's adding power to the ability for people to come through there, or do you think it's the individual going there that's opening up to the experience?
I think it's the individual opening up to the experience.
Okay.
Because I've seen it at the Sallie House, I've seen it at the Villisca Axe Murder House, I've seen it at a lot of places that we go, that somebody will go, well, who is this spirit that's, that's the spirit of this? And I look at them, I go, that's not what I'm seeing. And I'll tell them what I'm seeing, and they're going, oh my goodness, that you're right, that is this family member I'm communicating with. I said, because how would this spirit know the stuff that you're telling me right now? That that this spirit's telling me, how would the spirit of this house know your personal stuff?
So you feel that it might, excuse me, might well be the energy at a particular location, such as the McPike Mansion, that has such a fantastic energy about it to begin with. When people go, if there is a spirit that has wanted to communicate with them in the first place, it might provide that energy in order to be able to do so.
I don't know if it's the energy. I think it provides the focus. Because,
the focus.
Yeah, because, a lot of people, when they go to a paranormal location, they're going there because it's known to be paranormal. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, they're open up to hearing the stuff that maybe they're not listening to when they're riding in their car and the spirit's sitting in the back seat talking to them all the time.
Right.
They just don't hear it. But because they happen to be at this location right now, that spirit takes that opportunity to make sure that they can hear them at that time. It's like when you go to a medium. A lot of times, that same spirit's with you, whether you're at the medium or with the medium or not.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden, the medium's telling you this is what they're saying, and you're finally hearing it because you want to hear it at that time. So it's a matter, to me, of paying attention to what's around you all the time. A lot of times people don't even realize that they have the ability to know that a spirit's with them unless they're in a haunted location.
Yeah.
So it sounds almost like what you're also saying is that you can deem a house haunted where in fact you're the person that's haunted and you're taking it into the location.
Quite possible if you're not paying attention to the other signs in that house as well. Because I mean, I've had experiences in the McPike Mansion that aren't related to my family, such as, you know, every once in a while, you know, a friend of ours died back in 2018, and he was a fellow volunteer at McPike Mansion too, and he shows up there quite frequently playing pranks on people, because that never happened before. And so it's kind of a little bit strange that, you know, yeah, he's going to be there. Is it related to us or is it related to the mansion? Well, I have to think it has to be related to the mansion because he loved that mansion long before he knew any of us. Maybe the pranking part is because, well, he knows that we like that kind of stuff. but the rest of it is we knew how much he loved that house. He was the guy that was always doing something, you know, putting up cameras to keep people from vandalizing it. Whatever Sharon Ludke needed done, he was her go-to guy that would go and take care of it. He wasn't the guy that was helping with the restoration. That's someone else. But when there was an event going on there, he was the person that she called and said, "Can you make sure that this all happens?" And he had been doing that since they started doing tours way back when in 1997.
Wow.
And the campouts and all that stuff until he passed, and then that torch got passed to me and Ron.
Can you give us a little bit of background on the McPike Mansion? Because I don't know how many people are familiar with the history and why it would be haunted.
I don't know why it would be haunted either. So it's
Interesting.
It is you know, I've been volunteering there since 2009. I mean, we went there in 2009. We've been volunteering since 2010. And, you know, I've heard the story hundreds of times and I cannot repeat it to save my life, to be honest, because when we're there, we're working so hard, making sure everybody has such a good time at the camp out that, you know, sometimes the stories get lost. But Henry McPike was once mayor of Alton, Illinois. He was also very big into politics. Not just being mayor, but he actually brought the Lincoln Douglas debates to Alton, Illinois. And so, real big guy, real big into the Lincoln presidency. He was actually with Abraham Lincoln when he was announced that he won the second presidency. I mean, he even has a firsthand account of Abraham Lincoln finding out that he won, and they're hooping and hollering, running down the stairs in Springfield, Illinois, to the street. And he said Lincoln was kind of down and depressed as he walks down the steps with his, you know, shoulders slunk over, going, "I guess I'll have to go tell mother," which is what he called his wife, was mother. And he knew by this time he had already seen that he was going to die during this pregnancy or presidency. Sorry, pregnancy's on my mind. He probably would have died during a pregnancy. But
would have been an interesting presidency.
Yeah, it would have been. Sorry, just had a brand new grandbaby, and my mind's on the grandbaby. But back when men couldn't have babies, Ron said. But there was, I mean, Alton has a really strange history as it is. During, you know, like they say that it's actually the where the first shot was fired in the Civil War, even though it was in 1839. Reverend Elijah Lovejoy had an abolitionist newspaper, and his printing press had been thrown into the Mississippi River 3 different times. So 3 different printing presses thrown into the Mississippi River, and he wasn't going to let it happen a 4th time. And him and a bunch of people were there defending it. and there happened to be a battle right then trying to save the printing press, and Reverend Elijah Lovejoy died at that time, and they say that it's one of the shots that probably started the Civil War. Do I know that for a fact? No, I don't, but that's how history is. A lot of people take a lot of that's how they feel it started anyway. But he was writing a lot of things about how he felt that slavery was wrong, and he wanted to stand up for what he thought was right. And, because Missouri being right next door, being a slave state, that's usually where the people came from to throw his printing presses into the Mississippi, came from St. Louis. So it is kind of an interesting take on things. There was a Civil War prison there. A lot of the people that left that prison looked like the pictures of all the stuff that we saw from Auschwitz and a lot of the German war camps, people starving. And I mean, it was terrible. And that prison was eventually torn down. And there were rumors that all the bricks from this prison were used to build the streets and the houses in Alton. And that's not true. But, it made for a really good story. So we've got that was a rumor, and that wasn't true. So, but I was talking to Dave, who runs the Mineral Springs Hotel, and he went and did a bunch of research on what happened to those bricks, and found out that they were sold in bulk and went to different cities, and only a few of them were actually used in town. They used to try to say that part of the Mineral Springs Hotel was built with those bricks, and that was found to be untrue. But Dave did a lot of research before he started doing the tours there at Mineral Springs, and wanted to make sure that he had it right. But there was other people who had done tours in town before that gave different stories. Troy Taylor is one. The other lady, she's gone now. I don't remember her name, but she was a very nice lady. But there's also a sanitarium that has been turned into an apartment complex there in Alton as well, that was part of the Underground Railroad. So you got a lot of different things going on in that area, but McPike Mansion itself is on the highest point of Alton, Illinois. They used to be called Mount Lookout. And they built it in 1868. And I can't imagine what it looked like before. Because right now, when we see it now, it has been turned into multiple apartments, multiple kitchens, bathrooms, things like that in there, where before there was a summer kitchen outside, and then there was the wine cellar and all this. And then when you look at it now, you can't imagine that it had these two huge living rooms, a beautiful, well, now you can, if you look at the pictures now, the sunroom and all that, because it's all been restored. All the windows have been replaced. All the outside doors have been replaced. The roof is now replaced. So now they're working on the inside. But in the past, it had beautiful grapevine. I'm pointing at the ceiling, so you guys can tell.
I can see it. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
we can see it.
So it was all grapes. Wood, and I mean, it's beautiful. It had all these marble fireplaces. All these things were stolen from the house when it was abandoned. There's a lot of it was used for firewood by homeless people. So it was a single family home for the McPike family. And then then another family moved in, Paul Lashinger. He got the house, and after that is when it became apartments. It was also a girls' school at one time, and they were going to tear this whole place down and make a shopping center in this neighborhood, which is strange because you got this big McPike Mansion across the house from these 2-bedroom bungalows, and as of December, one of those bungalows burned down and one of the men died. The older man that lived in that house died back around Christmas, just straight across the street from there. But Sharon Ludke owns the house next door and a house across the street from there, so that she can watch the house all the time. But like I said, I have no clue as to why it would be haunted. But according to Sandy Little Lizard, it's because the McPike family loved their home so much that they never left.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the only thing that they can come up with. It used to be 15 acres. Was it 15? No, I think it's 5 acres now. It used to be 15 acres. And Henry McPike patented the McPike grape. This grape was about the size of a plum.
Whoa.
And so he was real big into horticulture, and he was a big winemaker. So the McPike family still exists. That's directly related to them. And what's strange is that Henry McPike had a brother named William McPike. And William moved to Atchison, Kansas, and started the McPike Drug Company there. And the McPike family was friends with the Finney family, who was the people that lived in the Sallie House.
Oh, how interesting. What an
Yeah.
interesting connection.
Yeah, I found a lot of events where both families attended in the newspaper back in the day.
Wow.
So
Well, do you suppose perhaps there might be some sort of a spiritual connection between the two houses?
I don't know if there is between the two houses. I think between the two cities.
Okay, so not necessarily the locations itself. It's just spiritually between locations and not the house itself.
Right. I think both cities have really interesting histories, both related to the railroad, that if the railroad had gone through either one of those cities instead of the cities they went through, we could be looking at Atchison could have been the Kansas City, and Alton could have been the actual St. Louis, as opposed to the way it turned out. Just moving a little bit north as opposed to south. Maybe if that was the case, that would have helped. The railroad did go through Atchison, but it wasn't a big railroad. And the same with Alton, but where they built the bridges to go across the rivers happened to be in other places, taking away from these two cities that might have been great. Yeah. So, but Atchison is might have 9,000 people in it now. There's only one manufacturing plant there. It's not a. It's a sad place to go. If you're looking for industry or someplace bright and shiny, same with Alton. It's not the prettiest place, but it's got some interesting history. But it is strange that you have two cities. If you fold the map of Missouri over in the middle, Atchison and Alton would land right on top of each other. It was a weird thing that I happened to notice. That they're both on major rivers, and the Missouri River comes out just above Alton, Illinois. And of course, and that seems strange, but the Missouri River does flow, west to east. Not really north. It's kind of a little bit south, but not until it gets to the Mississippi River does it flow straight south.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
Do you know
weird.
whether or not it's on a ley line?
There are rumors of that, but I don't know. I don't know where the ley lines are. But, it's very possible because there are certain lines that look like they go right through the two areas, and add Villisca in there as well. It's almost, it's got the same street address as the Sallie House, and you can draw a pretty well a good straight line right to it from there. So, and not from point to point.
Something interesting to look up. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
cool.
well, what's funny to me is that I found all three houses around the same time in my life, right way back when in 1994, and now I'm on first name basis with all the people involved. Well, I was in a first name basis with everybody involved in the Sallie House, but things have changed. And but Villisca, yeah, we know Johnny really well, and I met Darwin Lynn before he died. I know Martha Lynn, his wife, and it's strange how things turn out the way they do, and none of it was it was intentional to go to these places, but it wasn't intentional to become part of the fabric of these places. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, because it sounds to me like you're the center of the web, as it is, and through your life you've made these connections, and wow.
Well, like I said, before we went live, I was telling you guys, that my husband's family, his great uncle was the sheriff in the Villisca Axe murders, and the family pretty much kept that secret because they felt it was an embarrassment. And it's like, it's not an embarrassment. The sheriff wasn't even there until the deputy got him there, and by then it was too late. People had already traced all through the Villisca Axe murder house, and if he's bad, then what about the guy from Paola, Kansas, the sheriff there that couldn't solve that one that happened 4 days before, or the one in Ellsworth, Kansas that never got solved, or because there were 50 murders all related that never got solved. And
wait,
so
did you say 50?
50.
Wow.
And the one in Paola, Kansas, the only reason I bring that up is because that's only 17 miles from where I live. And they, for a long time there, people used to say that house got burned down to try to keep people from going to it. But it's a small rental house. And I don't know if there's anything to it, if it's haunted or not. I took my husband there last year for the very first time. We've lived here for 21 years. And I took him last year when we had to go get our licenses. And just for effect, apparently, a train happened to go by. And they said, that the murderer was more than likely jumping trains. Well, the person I think that did it actually worked for the train, and nobody would notice him coming and going because he worked for the train. And so when this train went by, not less than, it couldn't have been more than 100 yards from behind the house in Paola. And when you're at the Villisca Axe murder house, you can hear the train go through. And there's also rumors that quite possibly the murderer may have stayed at the Cottage Inn, which is now Malvern Manor in Malvern, Iowa. There's all kinds of different rumors, but it's like may have, you can't prove, Right. But it is interesting because you can hear the train there too, and it's the same train that goes through Red Oak and Villisca, so it's the same tracks all attached. So is it possible? Yeah, it's possible, but is it factual? No, not unless you find a roster that says here's who signed in to this hotel on this day. But yeah, it's strange when you think about all these murders that could be attributed to this one person, but yet there's, they all happened within a 1 year period. But like I told Ron, I said the reason that I make my educated guess the way I do on who I think killed the people was because the guy I think that did it murdered his grandmother and his mother by axe in their own home in Columbia, Missouri, and he went to jail in Jefferson City, Missouri for doing that, and the murder stopped when he went to jail. Kind of says to me, like, I think I know who did it. And then and at the end of his life, he was in like a flop house in St. Louis, and as he was dying, he admitted to it on his deathbed. And I know that a lot of time deathbed confessions go nobody ever checks him out. But yeah, he on his deathbed he claimed to have done it to kill all these people. So
now I know when you was talking. So who's got the chicken, the rooster?
Yeah, that'll be here, obviously.
That's Jeff.
We've got two of them.
Now, when you was talking about being in the McPike Mansion there at night, you said it was so dark you couldn't see. Now, my question is, if the spirits are there at night, they're in the daytime also. So
Right.
why do you think that you have to be in total darkness to be able to investigate?
I don't. It's just that the lady that runs the the tours there, Sandy Little Lizard, she always wants the lights out because at that point she thinks that people are paying more attention to what's going on. But no, we've seen stuff there during the daytime. My husband's actually seen the mist occur in the basement that got McPike Mansion on fact or faked of this fog down there, and he happened to see that. So, and the bad part is that they were setting up the cameras, they weren't even on yet, and my husband went in there to try to stir it up, and by the time he got in there it was gone. But no, I don't think that you have to be in total darkness. I mean, I just think that I think it's good for effect to get people to pay attention. What I've seen from being in total darkness in the basement is people feel free to yell out whatever they feel like yelling out because nobody knows who's saying it. You know,
Wow.
they'll sit there and they'll say, I see this white ball of light going across the ceiling, and I'm sitting there looking and I'm going, I don't see anything.
Yeah.
I see this purple ball of light, and it's like, okay, now and people say, well, I smell this. Well, who knows who's wearing what perfume?
Right.
You know,
Any,
you could be wearing lavender. We don't know.
all those kinds of things you have to take with a grain of salt. Now,
Right.
have you got any actual
or
audio EVPs?
I do not,
Okay.
because I'm going to tell you honestly, I have never caught an EVP to save my life. I can tell people what I hear, and
it took me, sorry, I was going to say it took me years to get just one, but it's really cool.
what was yours?
Mine was a voice on the Queen Mary here in Long Beach. That we were down in the it was a paranormal event weekend, and I was down with some other investigators in the pool area, in which there's a little girl ghost and a young woman ghost. Oh, jeez, those roosters. And one of the I have it posted on YouTube. I'll send you the link on your Facebook page. But you can hear one of the investigators saying, Jackie, which is the name of the little girl, can you see this light on my device? And she had an EMF meter or something. And you can hear her voice reverberating on the acoustics of the area. And then all of a sudden, a voice with no reverb at all just replies on this side.
Oh. So that is amazing. I always have tried so many times to get an EVP. One of the people that I had on my show, her name is Ursula Bilski.
Mm-hmm.
She said use your computer, and so I've been trying to use my computer because my computer has a mouse fart mic. It hears everything. And so, and knowing that, I figure it would probably be one of the best things to use to try to get EVPs. Bad part is I'll hear road noise. So very frustrating when you're in a place that might have, like the Kendrick House down in Carthage, Missouri. There is a truck depot right next door. And so that's all we heard in most of my EVPs happened to be trucks coming and going on the road trying to get onto Interstate 49. You know, we went to the Patterson House in Smithville, Missouri, which is related to Quantrill's Raiders. One of the guy, Patterson, was one of Quantrill's lead men during burning Kansas, Civil War stuff. And all I could hear were cars going by on a road that wasn't the road we were on, but another road was about 3 blocks away. So it's like, why waste my time, in some of these places that are highly populated. So
Yeah,
hopefully that
makes
makes
total
sense.
Yeah. I mean, there's only so much you can do about that exterior noise, and it's the same thing with photography. You can only do so much with the infrared and all of that as well. So, yeah.
Well, if you want to catch EVPs, get you an Olympus WS852. It's one of the better little recorders to use to get stuff with.
Yeah, but they're like $10,000 because they were taken out of production because they kept getting extra voices on them, and now they're almost impossible to get.
Oh, no.
I think that
model.
was Panasonic, I believe that was that one.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I do have an Olympus one, and I do have a Sony one, and I also have an extra mic for it to where it would, instead of it going into just the little mic on it, I got another one to put on the outside to catch more stuff. That was omnidirectional as opposed to unidirectional, and then I would like to try a parabolic mic.
Oh, you're talking about some bucks.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, you can get it through some of the Discovery Kids stuff.
What?
Pretty cheap. Yeah, you go look at the Discovery Kids stuff, and a lot of that stuff is less than $30. And yeah, it may be meant for kids and it's marketed towards kids, but who says that we're not just big kids anyway? And
That's true.
And they also have like night vision cameras and all this other stuff that you can get in Walmart in the in that department. It's usually in the craft department. You can find all this stuff. So it's not like it's a bad thing. And not to mention, you could probably build a parabolic mic pretty cheap. A lot of people use trash can lids and a regular mic and some other other things.
For all the strange things that I do, if I were to walk outside one night with a trash can lid in my hand and, a couple of cameras and everything, my neighbors wouldn't even think twice. So, cat's out there doing something stupid again.
Well, but you know what? You just call them Baltimoreans. And you're done. They don't know. And I can say that, people, I'm from Baltimore. So, but no, I tell people, I said, there's two kinds of people from Baltimore. I said, there's Baltimoreans and Baltimoreans, and I'm a Baltimorean. So, and sometimes it's hard to tell the difference, though, until they open their mouth.
Yeah. Well, I'm just down the road from there, so I know about both of them.
Well, again, we've still been talking about coming back out and checking out Antietam, because like I told you before, I had no clue that I have a cousin that owns a house on Antietam.
Right.
And it was a
Definitely gotta
schoolhouse.
get here. Yep.
Yeah. And heck, if I hadn't met her I know it's strange, cousin I've never met. I have a huge family, and we went on a trip to Kentucky, and I was going down to Bristol, Tennessee after that. And the day we were in Kentucky, we got a message, Denise, your aunt's in the hospital in ICU. And I'm like, right now? And they go, yeah. And we were on our way down there, and we get there, and my cousin, she looks at me, and my other cousin introduces me and says, this is Denise, she's your cousin, and this is her husband, and we're going to take her back here to see mom. And so they take me back to see my aunt. She looks fine. Okay. Yeah, she was in ICU. She looked fine. And I said, I came all the way from Kansas to see you. And she goes, I know you did. And basically, they let her out the next day out of the ICU.
Wow.
And she didn't want to miss seeing me. But I did my show from this my cousin's house, my other cousin in Bristol's house. And when I walked in the next morning, okay, I'd been there all night, slept there, all this other stuff. They bring my aunt in, and I went out the front door, and I'd been coming up through the back door, through the basement and up the back stairs. They bring me in the front door, and I'm looking, and I'm going, oh my God, I remember this house from when I was a kid. I mean, all of a sudden, and I'd been there for how many times? We'd been there probably 3 times through the back door, and this is the first time I'd come through the front door and realized that this was a house that I used to go to when I was, 3, 4 years old, and did not know it. And it was so strange. But when I did the show that night, my cousin, she kept looking at me and she goes, I thought you looked familiar. And she looked me up and found out that I had been on Ghost Adventures, and she goes, I didn't know you were my cousin when I watched that. And that's when she told me about her house being on Antietam and everything. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of neat. So she's like a second cousin's kid. So not unusual to not know your second cousin's families very
True,
well.
yeah.
No, not.
So it was
Does your cousin have stories about Antietam in her house?
She told me one that night that I was right after I got off the air, and we haven't had any time to really talk since between
Cool.
kids and deaths. So we're trying to keep the deaths to a minimum. But
There you go.
yeah, but they've had a lot of things going on up there. But she hasn't said anything. She said that they had some things move in their house that they didn't understand. She goes, but to be honest, she goes, I have a 2-year-old and things get moved. She goes, but now that he's older, she goes, she's wondering if some of the stuff that's moving isn't him. So we'll find out.
2-year-olds are demonic. Yeah.
They can be. I have to say, my 2-year-old grandson, who's now 3.5, he has been the sweetest kid. I've never seen a little boy so sweet until he throws a temper tantrum. But most of the time, he's sweet and smart and loving. I mean, my daughter's afraid that now that they got the new baby that he's not going to be as loving. And I said, well, that's kind of up to you guys. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting. Like I said, I need to get to her house, and if it had happened, if we had known about her when we went to Gettysburg and met up with Kat, instead of leaving the day that we did, we probably would have went over to Antietam and checked that out.
Oh, blame me then.
No, I'm not blaming you. We left because everything was closed. So people, if you go to, I'm going to tell you now, if you go to Gettysburg, don't go on Monday or Tuesday. Everything's pretty much closed.
Yeah, it is.
They have ghost tours at night, but most of the shops are closed. They do the bulk of their business between Wednesday and Sunday. And so it kind of makes it a little bit, you kind of have to go peak time to be able to do any of the interesting things. But, I have some friends in Gettysburg that run the Lookout House. They had moved from Glen Burnie up there. And heck, I think I've got as many friends in Gettysburg as I do in Vegas at this point.
Huh. Do a lot of gambling, huh?
No, we have children. We have children in Vegas. The gamble is getting there.
It's getting there, huh?
Yeah, we drive. We drive from where we live to out there, and but yeah, we have two grandchildren and 2 children in Vegas.
Wow. That's too far for me to go.
Well, where are you?
I live in Southwest Ohio.
Oh, okay.
And I had been going to Gettysburg every year and meet up with all kinds of people and doing my show from there. But with COVID last year, we didn't get to do anything. And I'm not sure if we're going to be able to go this year or not. So it's just a wait
I don't
and
know.
see.
How is Pennsylvania? Are they still got a lot of things shut down?
That's still kind of interesting.
A lot of it's
No,
trying
actually,
to open
most
up.
everything is open again.
Yeah.
I've been up there, and everything is getting pretty well opened up. In truth.
Oh, that's good. Because I know here we're finally in our county we no longer have a mask mandate.
Oh.
And in the county north of us, oh yeah, theirs went out yesterday. So, and our schools here have been open the whole time.
Wow.
They only shut down when nobody knew what was going on with COVID, and that was it. But we opened up in August just like we do on any other normal day, and they didn't do any online schooling here. So,
Wow.
yay! I don't have any kids in school. I don't have a dog in that race.
Ah.
So I really didn't care. But it did make it really good for the housing market here because people moved from other counties to our county because we had school. So that was the only thing that we saw from that. And really, our county only had a mask mandate for like 4 months. So, but we didn't have it. I don't know. I don't know how to account for the numbers. So we're not going to get political. So, but yeah, they canceled. I know this past weekend they had Hanukkah up in Omaha. So that went off last weekend without a problem. We've got a paranormal conference coming up in Marshalltown, Iowa, the third weekend in August 20th through 22nd that Ron and I are, I don't know if we're speakers, but I know that we are paracelebs doing tours. So that'll be fun. But we get to meet Travis Walton. I'm excited about that.
Oh,
about
cool.
That. Well,
I'd
he's never
love
wavered.
to meet him.
Well, he's never wavered from his story.
No.
And that's the whole thing. A lot of these people that have been abducted have never wavered from their story, so it makes you wonder, not how much of it is true, because they believe all of it's true. So I've seen Fire in the Sky a couple times, and that movie just freaks me out. So I'm kind of excited to meet him.
That's because the movie had almost nothing to do with what actually happened. You should read the book.
Oh, I have read the book too, but like I said, I can't wait to meet Travis Walton, and two of the guys that were his friends that were with him. Not that they got abducted, but they were witnesses to the fact that he was taken. They're supposed to be there. Josh Hurd, who owns Malvern Manor and is part of the G Crew with Nick Groff and Chad Lindbergh and Johnny Hauser. So I don't know if Johnny Hauser's going to be there, but right now I know that Josh Hurd is. Dave Miller is supposed to be there. He's supposed to be talking about his book. And Cody Chris Sutton, he's one of the people we met at McPike Mansion. Known him for 11 years. And he's always fun to be around. And let's see, who else is going to be there? Oh, David Glidden. He's my paranormal kid. There's some other people Chad Lewis, who's written a lot of books in the Midwest about haunted locations and cryptids. And he also runs the Van Meter Festival in Van Meter, Iowa. They talk about the Van Meter Visitor. Kind of looks like a pterodactyl from back in the 1910 era. So it's kind of interesting to say the least. So, but I'm looking forward to that one. I don't know if there's any other paranormal events that we're planning on going to, but that's one we're planning on going to because a friend asked, and before she even said the dates, I said we'll be there. So,
yeah, they're starting to open back up. There's more and more having events this year. So,
yeah, there's one getting ready to happen in Gettysburg in June.
Yeah.
The phenomenology, it had been out of town for, a few years, and they finally brought it back to Gettysburg.
So where are they going to have it at in Gettysburg?
At that big hotel.
Oh, the Wyndham?
The big, enormous one. What is it, the 1863?
Right.
Right there on the corner.
Yeah, it's right
next. That big one.
It's right next to the house where the girl got killed.
The Jenny Wade house, yeah.
Right, yeah. That's it. Yeah.
I met a lady that did the tours there. We were out in front, and one of the tours went by. Actually, there was two tours going by, and they both had different stories about the Jenny Wade house, and it was funny. And one of the women says, "Yeah," she was. when we're given tours and we go in Jenny Wade doesn't like having her picture taken, and the tour guide from the location yelled across the street at him and said, "You guys don't know what in the F you're talking about." And she goes, she gets her picture taken all the time, and it was just so funny that she should do that. And she goes, if you take a tour, she goes, take this one that starts down here at the orphanage. And so it was really funny that she was doing that to us, but we were too far away from our hotel to go get our equipment and come back and go on that tour, because they said that they investigate the orphanage and the Jenny Wade house on their tour. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, but it made me laugh when the tour guide yelled at the tour groups as they were going by and they were telling their stories. And she goes, and they never tell the truth. And it's like, well, I said, it's probably perspective. You know, I said, they're probably telling their perspective. And she started laughing. So I don't know. I just kind of thought it was funny.
When we come back off a break, we'll talk about the Sallie House. That one there's going to be pretty interesting too.
Usually.
Usually.
I know something that you know.
Well, 7 years of doing tours there, there was a lot of things that happened there that a lot of people don't know, and it's still got notoriety, even though I don't know why. And now, I mean, back then I understood why. Now I don't. But until the movie comes out, you're not going to know. So there's a movie about the Sallie House, and then I'm writing a forward for Richard Estep's book. He's doing a book on the Sallie House, and I'm doing the forward.
Oh, well, I'm envious. I am really envious. I mean, I think Richard Estep is just absolutely incredible.
He's been a guest.
I'm envious.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
Yep.
I was supposed to go up there and see him when he was here a few weeks ago, but since my surgery, I really couldn't go out very much, because I never knew when I was going to have a choking fit or something like that to really scare the living crap out of people. Sometimes when I was eating, I was getting really sick, and I even went to the hairdresser, and I had to keep running to the restroom, and all you hear is gagging in the bathroom, and you got people looking at your husband like, you brought her out like this? She's sick? And he's like, no, she had surgery. It's just normal. She's not infectious, because anytime you cough right now, people look at you and it's like, sorry, had surgery, and it is what it is, and it's still better than it was. I mean, people don't realize that acid reflux can cause you to cough like you wouldn't believe, but it is what it is, and so just kind of smile and go on and ignore the nasty looks. So. But it is, like I said, it is what it is. But yeah, it was really nice. He's coming back, he said, probably in June. And so I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing him then. And because Atchison from where we live is 90 minutes.
Right.
So it's not like it's right down the street. And so when we were volunteering up there, just imagine, we're 90 minutes there, 90 minutes back. I mean, 3 hours of my day is shot just driving there and home.
Right.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a whim.
Yeah, I've seen him. I don't know, about 4 different times. Like down at in Kentucky a couple of times, and once up here, I believe. So we've had him on the show. I don't know, about 3-4 times, something like that. He's real good. We really like him. I think what we're going to do is go ahead and take our break, and then when we come back, we will talk some more with Denise. And let's see here, who's supposed to take us out? Is it Jeff?
That's
or is
Jeff's
it?
job.
Let me hear this out.
Okay, Jeff, won't you take us out then?
Well, you're listening to the Paranormal View on para-x.com with your host Henry Foister, Ceiling Cat Barbara Duncan, Tabby Cat Gash, and myself, Jeff Gould, and tonight's guest, Denise. Oh my goodness, Denise Pridemore. Sorry. Stay tuned for more of the Paranormal View after the break.
Whether you're listening at home, at work, or anywhere, thanks for making Para X part of your day. Your source for everything paranormal, Para X.
And welcome back, everybody, right here to the Paranormal View on the Parax Radio Network. I want to thank everyone for being with us tonight. Those here in the chat room and those listening from around the world, we appreciate each and every one of you. Tonight, got a great show going on, and we have with us, in just a minute, we have with us Barbara Duncan.
Hello, everyone.
Jeffrey Gould.
Hello.
And Tabby Cat Gash. Maybe. Maybe she's here, maybe she's not. And want to welcome back our great guest, Denise Pridemore. Maybe.
When we left,
Oh.
I thought I was at Taco Bell being called Dennis.
Dennis? Who's calling you Dennis?
The other guy.
We're going to get a job at Starbucks.
Oh, you talking about Jeff?
Jeff. Yes, Jeff said Dennis instead of Denise
Oh.
to start with.
But I apologize. And
It's okay.
Well,
Somebody asked me my name one time. I was at Taco Bell and I said it's Denise, but I answered to Dennis at Taco Bell.
Oh no.
And so they yelled. I figured it'd be memorable, right? That they'd say Denise. No, he yells Dennis, and everybody in the restaurant. This was in Iowa. Started laughing because they had heard me. And so they're like, okay. So to really get them, sometimes I'll tell them my name is Ron.
no.
My husband's name, or I'll tell them my name is Lula because my real first name is Lula. And so sometimes they take it off your debit card. When you swipe, they call that name, and they can't say Lula to save their life. I'm Lulu. It doesn't matter. There's an A on there, but they can't read it. Or if I say Ron, 5 minutes later they're yelling for Juan.
Oh, no.
And so it's like, okay, this is getting old, so basically I still say Denise, and if they say Dennis, I just go and get it and just kind of like shake my head, I don't know. It's one of those funny things. We have a friend named, I had Dennis Stone on one night, and I don't know if you guys know him from America's Stonehenge. He was just recently on one of the shows. Dennis is a really nice guy. I met him right after, actually it was the day after America's Stonehenge was vandalized.
Oh no.
So I had him on, and he was so gracious, even though it just happened. He'd only done the police report, so he couldn't say anything about it on my show that night because the police report and the investigation was ongoing. But it was it got vandalized on Sunday, and I had him on Monday. And so it was kind of one of those strange things. And I asked him, I said, so do you sometimes get called Denise at fast food restaurants? And he goes, yes. And I said, well, that's okay. I said, I get called Dennis. And so
Oh dear.
so he just kind of laughed. And so it's funny when you finally you meet the other person that they're calling all the time, and you're going, okay, okay, this is good. So at least now he's telling people the same thing. He goes, but I answer to Denise at fast food restaurants. But he has said that's the one thing he remembers. He doesn't really remember much of the show except for that.
Wow.
So I kind of laugh. So it's all I can do. But
Pretty much.
But-
Yeah. Be
So-
thankful you don't have a Starbucks there. I can tell them my name is Barbara, and I pick up the cup and it says Alex.
oh,
So
okay. Well,
they put whatever they want.
one time.
There's actually a theory, and it sounds plausible, that Starbucks deliberately puts or misspells names on cups so that people will take photos and post them on social media, which is free publicity.
That would make sense. So in my case, we were at a restaurant one time, and they didn't know how to spell Denise, or they didn't know how to spell my name, and they kept spelling it wrong. We were on a long trip. It was probably when we went to Gettysburg, and I said my name is Denise with an S, and they spelled Sinise.
Yeah, that's where my mind is for that.
And I'm like, okay, it's as bad as hey, my name is Mark with a C, so they put Kark. No, it's not. It's not that. So, but no, somebody had spelled Denice, Denise, and it's like I'm no longer nice. And is where I said next time I come, I won't be nice. And they go, why? And I go, well, because Denise is not my name. And but you just get to the point to where, I mean, it's not that hard of a name to spell.
It's a lot easier than the fact I'm Jeffrey with a G, like Jeffrey Rush and Jeffrey Giraffe, and I get some very creative misspellings of fast food. I used to say Jeffrey with a G, and then just nightmare fuel versions of my name come up. So I just say Jeffrey, and even then they'll do Jeffrey and Jeffrey.
I love Geoff. They see your name and they call you Geoff.
Exactly, and then I ask them if they have problems saying George.
Jorge. No, I don't know, and so I just kind of smile. But yeah, I mean, who would think that with the name Pridemore that you would have trouble saying Pridemore when you see it?
Well, Pridemore is easier to say. I don't know how I stumbled over Denise. I've known Denise's in my past.
I just give you
crap. I shouldn't have had a problem with that. I don't know how that came out.
Just giving you crap. But Pridemore, I get phone calls all the time for Pridemore. And I'm like, really? I mean, I don't get that. But, that's a whole, we could talk about the way people say stuff all the time. I mean, we were going to talk about Atchison. Zach Bagans couldn't say Atchison. The whole time he was there. If you watch the episode, he says Atchison 5 different ways.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, and I told him, I said, it's Atchison. It's don't look at how it's spelled. Just listen to how it's
pronounced. Yeah.
Listen to me say it. And I said, and people in the Midwest don't have an accent for you to misconstrue. That's one of those things that, and I mean, not that I'm from the Midwest, because I'm not, but I sound like I'm from here now. And so we don't, we enunciate well. So if you don't get it, then that's your problem. But of course, with him, everything is, what is his word that he screws up all the time?
He always calls ghosts demons.
Oh, well, that's because he has one in his pocket. Because he actually said there was a demon at McPike Mansion. But I will tell you, if you listen to that episode, they get an EVP on the McPike episode, and it's my voice.
Oh no!
What was you telling him?
Guess where I was? I was not there.
Oh, you was not there. Huh?
Yeah, my voice comes through because my husband's the one who pointed it out. He goes, "That's your voice on that EVP."
Huh.
We were actually at Ashmore Estates in Illinois when they were doing that show.
Wow.
Because
that is cool.
Sharon wanted me there for that. They also wanted me down for the Pythian Castle in Springfield, Missouri, because I was the first person to ever get scratched down there. But Zach said no because she was on our Sallie House episode.
Wow.
So that gets us to the Sallie House again. But yeah, he. I will. People have a love-hate relationship with Ghost Adventures, especially with Zach. And I'm going to tell people my opinion of him that day. He treated me and my family very nicely. He is a Type A personality, and because his name's on it, he wants it to be perfect. But he did treat me and my family with respect, and he also treated the crew. Treated Sharon Ludke's family at McPike Mansion very well, included them in every meal, left them a tent that's easier to put up than the big tent that we put up all the time. So I'm really grateful for that. But, like I said, those are my personal opinions. Other people may have different opinions, but the selfies that were taken with Zach, with me and my daughter, were his idea, not mine, because I could care less. I'm going to tell you, I've met presidents, I've met stars. I got cussed out by Al Pacino. I don't know if Kat remembers when they were filming Dog Day Afternoon over at Martin Marietta in Essex. I climbed the fence, and Martin Marietta, I climbed the fence. I was 12. I climbed the fence, and it's illegal because that's where they were doing, all those contracts for planes and stuff.
Right.
You're not supposed to do that. And they were filming over there on the water between Rocky Point and something else. But I climbed the fence, and he yelled at me because they had to stop filming because I climbed the fence.
Wow. Oh dear. Wow. Your 15 seconds of fame.
No, I got no fame from it. I just got yelled at and told.
Well, if you're going to get yelled by
anybody,
by anybody, Al Pacino is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so it's one of those things that, I'll remember it forever. Like I told somebody else, I said I babysat for Sugar Ray Leonard at his haunted home way back when. I did all these things. Getting my picture taken with Zach Bagans, only thing it does is prove that I met him. And I didn't care. That was one of the things that a lot of people don't get. We got to get our picture taken with this famous person. I don't care. It is what it is. So the experience was phenomenal.
It's what you have in your mind. It's what you have in your memory that counts.
Right. Because all that picture does is, all it did was make some people really mad. And other people, it made them like my kids, they were really proud. They took pictures of me when they saw me on TV and shared it online. I just wish they'd left my last name off because all those nudes that I got in my Facebook didn't care for that. I didn't care for the attention. But that's okay. I figured out how to delete and block. I have a huge collection of delete and block. But again, the experience, my husband and daughter were in the graveyard scene with, they had Liz Lane, who was talking about in the very beginning. The first voice you hear is mine, so that's the thing. That's the first thing. But then you see this group of people walking through the graveyard. So my daughter that just had the baby this week, she's in there along with my husband, the lady from the Chamber of Commerce, her kid, her brother's family is in there as well, and Liz Lane. And it looks like it's really dark. And it wasn't. It was 4:00 in the afternoon, so it was really bright out. And they kept telling me I had to stay hidden because I couldn't be seen. So if any time that the drone or the cameras panned my way, I had to hide. So I was hiding behind tombstones in the graveyard. And so the next thing that's funny is we had taken the bus out there, and Larry, the guy who talks about, he says, Sallie's house. Everybody's going to remember that. Sallie's house. He's the bus driver that does the trolley tours around Atchison. So we all rode out there on the bus. What's bad is I was supposed to be at Sallie House at a certain time, and the trolley tours were supposed to start. So we had to leave with the bus while they were doing retakes of stuff. So we leave in the bus and we come back with cars to bring everybody back. And of course, I'd never driven my friend's car. It was a Beetle. Never drove one. Have to drive that out there to go grab all these people to bring them back so I can change and get over there to get to the interview. I get there and there's a whole buttload of people. Okay. So when they say it's these 4 people doing it, okay, at this time we didn't know, nobody knew Nick was gone yet. Okay. So there's Aaron and Billy, Jay, and and Zach. People think that it's only the four of them. There's not. There's a whole bunch of sound people. There's a whole bunch of production assistants and all this stuff. So needless to say, one thing that we're all told is not true. And they also have an equipment tech now. You can add one other person into that, and that's Justin Spurrier. He's a friend of mine who used to live down the street that now lives in Vegas. And so you've got all these people standing around on a show that says it's only, the three of us locked down and the four of us locked down. That's not true. So they mic me up and all this stuff. And, Zach's going, where in the hell is she? And they're going, she was at the graveyard and they had to get her. Oh, okay. And so everybody calms down. They get me on the porch and all of a sudden, all these cars start driving by. Well, 2nd Street is the main thoroughfare from downtown to Benedictine College. They didn't rope it off, so they didn't barricade the road to keep people from coming and going. So, he's having a cow about that. While he's having a cow talking to to the production assistants and stuff, all the lights in the house go off and come back on. Okay. I can see Billy and Jay and Aaron. Aaron's right there next to me filming, and Billy is in the yard because I had upset him by saying, telling him how much he looked like Johnny Hauser. Apparently it offended him. And I don't know why, because they look very much like they could be brothers. And Jay's there, so all this stuff is going on. The funny thing is nobody had this filmed. My husband walks over to one of the production assistants and tells them what happened. And they're like, we didn't have any cameras on the house to catch this. And so, but like I said, the experience that I had with them, I teased everybody. I said, I had all four of them upstairs in the master bedroom.
How many people can say that?
Yeah.
But when I had them upstairs, because I took them through the entire house. When we were upstairs at the master bedroom, all of them got sick. And they had to sit down and stop filming because they got sick. That didn't make the episode. They thought it might have been something. I was like, no, it's EMF.
Yeah.
And they go, well, how do you know? I said, because there's unshielded cable in the ceiling from this light switch to the closet in the master bedroom. And if you have it on too long, you'll get nauseous and stuff. We had some experiences downstairs. I had somebody send me a message telling me that my toes looked nice in the picture. I was like,
what?
Well, I had on sandals and I had my toes painted, so they looked good.
Was it Quentin Tarantino?
No, but it was just kind of weird that somebody would say that. The only feedback I had was that I shouldn't have said the word Indian because it was offensive, and it's like, I'm Native American. And my family, we've always said Indian in my family, and none of my family was offended, so I'm not offended. And the other thing is that people felt like I should have had my glasses off because there was glare. And I was like, okay, whatever, nobody's going to be happy. But when I had them in the basement, they asked me some questions, and I said, yeah, you got to be a little careful of the. What was it? The mold and mildew in the house. Yeah. And the smell, you can smell. I mean, when you walk in the house, it smells like grandma's house.
Musty. Yeah. Old musty.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's because the house was built in, between 1868 and 1871. I mean, and the way the house is built, some of the walls get water in them and it has to dry. And it was raining. I mean, almost the whole time that they were there, it was raining. I mean, one of the nights they investigated, there was thunder, lightning. We had tornado watches. There was some hail in the area, all kinds of stuff. So that right there would fuel things in the house. But I thought it was odd that when we were watching the episode, the little panda bear toy that moved during the episode actually belonged to my children.
Wow.
It was stolen.
Oh.
The thing is we never saw it after that weekend that they were there. So they were there, and then that same weekend, right after they left, Tim Wood was there, and Tim Wood is from Live Sci-Fi. He has a demon in his pocket too. He keeps one handy for every show, and so my guess is that it's in Zach's museum at this point. Justin has yet to confirm that for me, but and I've been to Vegas a lot of times. I'm just not paying the price to get into a museum to see stuff that I could care less.
No, I don't do things like that either.
No. Now, if he wants to invite me to come when I'm there, I'll go. But I'm not paying that. Even with a veterans discount for my husband, it's only $2.50 off. Wow. Not worth it. No. So Groupon, watch Groupon. You might be able to get a better deal.
Okay.
But,
when did you say your daughter had her baby?
The 29th.
Of what?
This month.
April
Yeah,
29th?
just a couple of days ago.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
She shares my birthday.
That's right.
Oh.
That's what I was getting at.
Yep, she was born at 5:58 p.m. on Thursday. What's funny is that she's 6 hours shy of her daddy's birthday.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so her dad got a really nice birthday present, which means he's probably going to have to buy a gun. She is so cute that I think he's going to have some problems. Either that or Grandma will.
Oh.
Grandma will take care of it.
A Taurus Beltane baby. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we did tours there for 7 years, and I found out back to 1994. I found out about the Sallie House back in 1994 when it was on Sightings. It was on, what was it? A Haunting. It was on a lot of different shows, and I mean, I knew everything there was to know. My daughter got me a book about it back in 2010, because that's when it came out. The book came out in 2010 from Deb and Tony Pickman. And so I just started checking stuff out, reading about it and all this. And I mean, I'm sitting there in 1994. I've got a new baby. I'm nursing and watching this show in the middle of the night because, trying to be a good mom and not sleep and nurse, And so, because by this time I have 3 kids, and I'm watching, I'm like, I gotta check this place out. Well, we didn't have internet. We didn't have a computer. So the only thing I could do was pull out a road atlas, and I didn't even think to do that to see how far Atchison was. My husband worked for a steel plant that's halfway there, so he knew approximately where it was, and we lived in a haunted house as well. Funny thing is that at that time, Ron did not know. I'd never told him. What I did tell him was, I witnessed my father's death, but I was 27 miles away. And he didn't understand when I said that I'd had an out-of-body experience when I was 10, and that I witnessed this. We bought this house in Kansas City, Missouri that we lived in, and I told him, I said, yes, I saw this boy in our house. He says, Mom, and I say, what? And he goes away. And he didn't put these things together that I was telling him kind of in a roundabout way that I had a lot of paranormal experiences in my life. He never figured that out. And at one point we bought a new car. This was back, it's been a long time ago. And we bought a Nissan, and we're signing we put down our address, and the car salesman looks at me and says, I know your address. You guys live in the suicide house. Like, what?
Yeah, what?
And he goes, yeah. He goes, I used to live in your neighborhood, and Sharon's son committed suicide in your house. And I said, Sharon, my next door neighbor's best friend, son committed suicide in my house? And he goes, yeah. And I said, are you sure? Because I said, Bill's Bill across the street, his kid committed suicide, and the guy down the street, his kid committed suicide. And he's like, no, it was in your house. And I said, okay, well, that makes all kinds of sense now. And my husband looked at me and he goes, what? I said, told you, is all I said. Told you.
Wow.
And the thing is it wasn't just me. The kids had said it too. So here we are, we're living in a haunted house, and that story has a decent ending too eventually. But so like I said, I'm sitting here watching this stuff, and I go, someday I want to go there. You know, I also said the same thing about McPike and the Villisca murder house. So this was all the same year, and I just said, someday I'm going to go to these places and I'm going to check them out. And so move forward a few more years to like 2010, and I finally, in 2009, we took a tour of Atchison. We took the trolley tour. I had a book that was called Haunted Atchison. It was written by, it was a compilation of stories from the Atchison Chamber of Commerce that the town had collected. And so I took my book and I wrote down the addresses of all these places and wrote notes in the margins of the book. I actually taped the entire thing with my recorder. I had the digital recorder. I had taped the whole trolley tour, while I'm also making notes in a notebook and in the book. So, and taking pictures along the way. So it's me and Ron and two of our daughters on this tour. So this was in July. In September, we found out that they had open house, that basically you could go and tour the Sallie House, $10 a person, just between 1 and 4 or 1 and 5 you could go. Okay, so we came back up in September and we did the tour, and we brought our equipment. We brought our dowsing rods. We brought our whatever equipment we had. My daughter had gotten us some equipment for Christmas and stuff like that. So, and I brought my book and the notebook that I had made all these notes in, and all the research that I had done. Okay, this was before I was really into going someplace blind and finding out what's true and what's not, and going from there. I took every bit of information that I could find on the internet with me and believed every word of it. Okay, so the first thing is I walked into the house and I go, well, this isn't the house that they showed on A Haunting. It doesn't look anything at all like this. And so it was kind of really interesting to check that out. So we're sitting there, and more things are happening to where I'm questioning the things that I've read. And we had, a lot of answers on our dowsing rods and things like that. But like I said, at the time, we didn't know what we didn't know. We only knew what we were told. So we left that day. We stayed still till the end, till they kicked us out. And we decided we were coming back the following week. So me and Ron and one of our daughters came back the following week, and we had some interesting experiences. And we actually met this lady whose husband, or her father, had died, and she had to be the one to pull the plug. She had a lot of questions for him. And we had our dowsing rods, and she started asking questions, and I'm just holding the rods, and she asked a bunch of questions that only she knew the answer to before she started asking questions that she needed answers to. And she was amazed that somehow, some way, the right answers came. Okay? I never met this woman or anything before, but all the answers came. And at the end, she left crying and happy. So whatever the answers were that she got, she was extremely ecstatic to get them. But she explained the whole thing, basically that she felt guilty because she had to pull the plug on her dad. Oh. And in the end, her dad told her, she felt that it was her dad telling her that it was okay. Okay. At the time when we went to the Sallie House, then you couldn't go into the dining room. They had the dining room roped off. They had the nursery roped off, and you couldn't go down the basement stairs. The basement stairs I could understand because the bottom steps were missing. It was very dangerous. But it didn't make sense. You were walking around the house. There were these signs on the walls that had stuff from another paranormal team that said this stuff, these are the spirits that we have here. And it's like, you don't have any proof, you know. So the first thing was for me was there was a sign above the basement that said, a woman fell to her death on these stairs. It's like, okay, well, that I should be able to find. You know, I should be able to research this and find out if a woman fell to her death in this house. And that was the first thing that got me started, was apparently you can say anything you want in a haunted house and you don't have to have any proof. So after that, I went to Ron and I said, we got to find a way to come back in here where we're not paying $20 every time we come.
Right.
You know, so I contacted my work and I found out that I could volunteer and they would pay them to let me volunteer up to $1,000 a year. My husband's company would match his hours with dollars as well. So needless to say, it was in their best interest to make sure that we volunteered for them. So I basically told them, hey, you know, we volunteer for you. Not only will we get people to come here because we're saying, hey, we're here, you know, didn't know that actually had any power until later, but we'll be advertising that we're here, but we'll also be giving you guys money from CenturyLink and Coinstar. We'll give you money to validate our, you know, when we validate our time. And they were like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. And so that's how we got in there. But the part that really got me was when we went in there and we started doing tours. They had this horrible movie that was created. Is the Robbie Thomas part of the movie isn't horrible. It's the beginning part of the movie where they show this doctor showing basically doing a botched appendectomy in the kitchen, in the dining room of this house. And there's no proof of this. There's zero proof. We found out later on, about the time that we stopped doing tours ourselves, was that a previous mayor needed to have some reason why the Sallie House was haunted. And because a doctor had lived in the house, decided that this was probably the truth. And it wasn't the truth. And it was found out because I dug through every single newspaper, and every newspaper had something about this Dr. Finney, especially when he ran for mayor in 1913. You know, there was never anything negative about this guy. Never anything that made you go, oh, well, yeah, I could see this. And the movie that they did made him look like a drunk, made him look like he was an inept doctor when he was a doctor for the railroad. And he was, you know, saving people from runaway with, you know, there was a runaway wagon, and he saved these people from going down the road, because the roads went straight down into the river, Missouri River. So it was kind of really strange that, you know, here's all these really positive things about him, but yet nobody was pulling out this positive stuff about this family. They were all listening to this information that given to them by somebody that they felt was knowledgeable. Just because they were a previous mayor doesn't mean that they knew, that they didn't do any research. And what sealed it for me was when I asked the guy who runs the historical society about this family. They kind of snubbed me on it, put their nose up in the air that this family wasn't important, but yet this family was one of the founding families of Atchison, Kansas. You know, the guy who built the house, MC Finney. He wasn't a doctor. MC Finney owned one of the very first businesses in town. They were outfitters for people going west. An old day moving company in a way too, because they would store your stuff until you called for it, and then they would ship it out on wagons to go to wherever it is they were going. Their business was right below the Amelia Earhart grandparents' home. Of course, back then the Amelia Earhart grandparents' home wasn't famous until after the 1940s. You know, so that's a whole other problem. But you know, here they had this business. MC Finney was also one of the very first police officers in town. he was involved in the first election for the first mayor of the town. All kinds of stuff, but yet nobody wanted to look at this factual history of this family because it didn't match up with the persona they have given this house. They even left
you're
out.
saying that the Sallie House, the person that they refer to as Sallie, I vaguely remember you saying that there really wasn't somebody in that house.
No, there
that
never
relates
was.
to that.
Mm-mm. There is no factual proof of anyone named Sallie. Back then, Sallie would have been a nickname for Elizabeth, Melissa, all kinds of different names. So basically, when I did the research, they started keeping death records in 1905 in Kansas. So you can't look back at death records, but you could look back at old newspapers, because every newspaper would have, the deaths of, who died, where they're being buried, where their funeral is. And 9 times out of 10, of course, the funerals were usually in the family's homes.
Right.
Back then. There was nothing in that house except for MC Finney, his son, I forgot his name suddenly. His other son, he died. He lived in the house next door, but they did his funeral in the Sallie House. Charles Catherine's, which is Kate Finney's father, his funeral was in the house, and he died in the house. Richard Edwin Finney, he's a 15 to 18-month-old child. He died in the house, and his funeral was there as well. So right there's 4 funerals.
Yeah. Well, it's one thing to have all these men and a small baby, but how did you find out how it came about that Sallie itself, how this came about, or why?
Well, what happened was a medium named Barbara Connor was called in when the Pickmans lived there, and she came in and she looked up the stairs, and she decided to walk up the stairs, and when she came back down, she told them that there was a little girl there. Her name was Sallie, and don't know how they got the spelling Sallie over Y. I don't know, but somehow, some way, that's what it was. And she told Dad Pickman to treat her like a member of the family, discipline her like a child, basically accept her into your family, which is kind of questionable in itself if you don't know. And that's how the name Sallie got coined and how it became the Sallie House. The only Sallie I found in town was a 32-year-old African-American woman. And what I found was strange about her was she had died after childbirth. She had a whole ton of kids. And so she died, and it's quite possible that Dr. Finney might have been her doctor, because he did deliver most of the, half the kids in town at one point in time. But her obituary has her, even stranger, has her living at 2 different addresses, one 2 blocks away from the Sallie House and one 7 blocks away from the Sallie House. How in the heck do you get the obituary where she lives wrong?
Yeah.
So that is kind of odd. And I know that on a haunting, they said that they found her grave. The thing is there is no, the one that they show is that it's been worn over with time and all this other stuff. I've looked at those graveyard records from Oak Lawn Cemetery out there, and there's nothing out there that says anything about a Sallie being buried out there. I looked through the newspapers looking for any child under the age of 10 that died from pneumonia, because the Sallie, in a haunting they said that she died from pneumonia. Peter James, I think, also said that this child died from breathing issues. Don't know. That makes no difference. And then there was the city story of the botched appendectomy. Couldn't find anybody who died in the Sallie House with Dr. Finney as the doctor, for any reason. That was a child. I couldn't find anybody that died from a botched appendectomy either. I mean, I did find some people who died from appendicitis, but they didn't say that they died in the hospital or things like that. But again, most of these were men. And then you're sitting there looking at this stuff and going, this doesn't seem right. There should be something, especially if this person actually died at their address after seeing all these other things out there of, saying that, John Doe in the house across, halfway down, down the street and across, died in his home, and that his funeral is going to be there. It just makes you wonder why, if this really did happen, why isn't there any record period of it? So especially when I'm finding records of, Agnes Finney went to Weston to stay for 3 days, and she's hanging out with friends, and they're going to this event, and this event, and then, talking about her going out of town, which Agnes Finney did die in the house. Her name was Agnes Finney True at the time. She was the only female that died in the house, and she lived there the longest out of anybody else, from the time that the house was built to the time she died in 1939. And nobody gives her any credit for being there, even though she was the person I saw the most when I was there. Dr. Finney, who they say did all this, at the time that they're saying that this botched appendectomy happened, he lived in the house next door, not in the Sallie House. He lived in the house to the north with his mother and his wife and their new child. And so, like in A Haunting, they said that the doctor lived in this house with an African-American housekeeper, and that they had a love child together, which is not true at all, because Dr. Finney had a wife and a kid at that same time next door. So why would he have a mistress next door in his sister's house with his sister?
I think the whole thing just comes down to that old saying is, don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Oh yeah, we see that a lot. I mean, the facts are, the facts are really interesting when it comes right down to it. And the funny thing is Kat, you got a picture of the Sallie House that's old. Right now, it's half the paint has gone off of it.
Well.
So there again. There's also rumors that the house sold. It did not sell. It's still owned by the same family that's owned it since 1993.
Wow.
The family that owns it was not, the Pickmans never owned it. It's been a rental house since Mrs. Anderson was in the nursing home in 1989. So it's pretty much been a rental house since 1989. By 2004, they couldn't rent it anymore. People weren't staying. And so that's when they opened it up to the paranormal.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned, go ahead, Kat.
Well, when you were talking earlier about, the McPike Mansion and all of the various different people that have come through there and picked up on various different spirits, including yourself, that were totally unrelated to the location itself, I wonder if maybe the same thing hadn't been happening at the Sallie House, where mediums and so forth have been picking up on different spirits just themselves, or perhaps even a spirit that somebody else brought in, and the first thing they thought of was, well, then they must belong to the location, and it stuck.
I saw that happen quite a few times. One time we had a guy was sitting in a chair, and all of a sudden I looked at him and said Larry, and found out that, and I mean, I didn't know who Larry was. Okay.
Excuse me.
I mean, we do have a Larry that's associated with Atchison. He was the trolley driver. But no, I was looking at him, I was talking to him, and I said something about Larry, and it happened to be the name of his uncle that had just recently been laid to rest like 3 days before. And I described this guy to a T to the guy, and he was like, oh my. And I said, don't worry, he's not stuck here. He's just with you.
Yeah.
And I said, as long as you don't make him stay here. I said, don't do that to him. And so at the Sallie House, there was one thing that was very odd, is that there were multiple portals in the house. And don't know, it just felt weird when you would stand in certain parts of the house. I mean, really weird. Sometimes there would be a breeze in a spot where there shouldn't be a breeze, like in the basement. There would be a breeze going into the hole in the basement. And for those of you who have seen the hole in the basement, the only reason that hole was there was when they put in the ventilation system. They had to knock a hole in the wall so that the furnace could heat and cool, the furnace and the air conditioner and all that.
For the
so that when
ductwork?
they put in the duct work,
Yeah.
they had to do that to do that, to get the air in, or that in. And so as creepy as it looks, that's the reason it was there. That's not saying it wasn't used for other things, because there was a woman that did create some pentagrams on the floor, did some sacrifices, and there were animal bones found in that hole.
Wow.
Because it's just dirt.
No. Well, now you mentioned earlier Robbie Thomas. Which Robbie Thomas is that?
The one from Canada?
Okay, I know
The
him.
profiler?
Yeah, I'm real good friends with him.
Yeah. He actually he did the film there. He was actually supposed to be there with a whole bunch of other mediums a year before that, and something told him not to go. And the mediums that were there the year before that are like Amy Allen had been there.
Right.
So probably the reason why you've never seen it on Dead Files, even though they did approach me about that at one time, and I said, I don't know why you would do that, because Amy had been there.
Right.
And they go, when was that? And I said, in 2008, 2007. And I mean, I have it in a book. Christopher Moon used to hang out up there a lot with Mama Moon. And he used to do a bunch of haunted university stuff up there in Atchison, because Atchison was one of the first towns to embrace its haunted history. And they started doing tours, the trolley tours. They actually started doing those in 1995, right after the Sallie House was on all these other shows.
Wow.
So they've been doing them for quite a long time. There's so much of the actual history that has never seen the light of day until I started talking about it. I mean, because we were doing tours, we took down all the signs off the walls. We had the stairs fixed for the basement so that people could go down in the basement during the tours. We had all the ropes, so nothing was roped off, so that people could go. You can't do that now. All this stuff is roped off again. Okay, so when we were there for those 7 years, we had everything opened up. People had a great time. They learned a lot. And instead of playing that movie, we started telling them the truth. We told them, these are the legends that go with the house. The haunting story, the botched appendectomy story. But here's the facts that I know them of. And I mean, I had all this stuff in a notebook on the table where people could look at it.
Wow.
And so I would spend hours upon hours researching stuff, and if something would come to me, I would research it. The biggest thing that used to bother me was that there was a rumor that the family lived in the basement while the house was being built, and the part of the basement would be where the furnace is, where this family supposedly, 3 adults and 3 small children and a pregnant woman were supposedly living while this house was being built, when they owned their own business on the riverfront. And I was able to find a documentation that said that their address was actually where their store was. Everybody's seen Little House on the Prairie. Where did the Olsen family lived? They lived with their business.
Yeah.
And that's how it was back then as well. And, and really none of that stuff from Laura Ingalls Wilder is that far from here.
Right.
So you look at it, and and I kept telling people, that's not true. I said, these people had money. They had enough money to be able to live with their business and build this house without having to live in it until it was ready. And that's when I had asked, where was this at? Because, when you look at the street maps now, they're totally different than what they were then, because it was on B Street is where it was. B Street is now, Kansas Street. A Street is Atchison Street. And so basically when they showed me a map from back then, it was right below where the Amelia Earhart house is now.
Ooh.
And so, of course, at this time, the river's been widened because of flooding. So part of it would have washed away years and years ago, because there had been so many floods. I mean, a lot of the records in town got lost because of 2 floods in 1950, 58 and 59. That town has got a curse on it when it comes to weather. They get more tornadoes in that part of Kansas than almost any other part. They've had more flooding than any place I've ever seen in my life. And I mean, I wish I was kidding. You can't even get up there sometimes because at least one way, because the bridge is flooded. You can't get to the bridge to come over the river. You have to come through Leavenworth to get up there.
Our time is running right on down. We got like less than 3 minutes. I want to take time to thank you for being on the show tonight. Barbara, Jeff, and Tabby, you guys got any last things you want to ask real quick like?
Well, I was just curious, Denise, when will you be here on the East Coast?
Don't know. We're working on it, though.
Wrong answer.
I know. We want to come out so bad, but right now with all the new baby stuff, we're lucky if we're going to be able to get out this year at all.
Oh.
Well, because we just spent 2 weeks in Vegas with that new grandbaby, and now this one, daughter needs us more than our other daughter does. So, and we've used up all of Ron's vacation.
Wow.
So that's kind of where we're at for right now. So until he earns some more, we can't go anywhere.
Okay. I want you to tell everybody how they can follow you and listen to you. And then we want you to stay on till we're off, and we'll talk with you for a minute.
Okay, well, if you're trying to find my show is on WBHM-DB.com. It's out of Birmingham, Alabama. So if you see that and you go, oh, she's in Kansas, that's why. And my show is on live most every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central. Right now I'm on replays because of the new baby. And there wasn't very many shows this year, so if you're out there and you're looking at WBHM-DB.com, you'll see there's some. And if there's a show you want to hear that's before 2020, that's all in my Mixcloud. And you can find me on Facebook on the Paranormal Pride or Pridemore Paranormal or Denise Pridemore.
All right. Tammy, who's our guest next week?
Oh, God. Huh? What?
What? You're supposed to be letting everybody know who our guest is next week.
Oh, I am so sorry.
Oh. It's Morgan Knudsen.
Oh, I am so sorry. I had a cat here on my lap, and I had... Sorry about that. Seriously, Finn was sitting here on my notes, and I went to look at it. I am so sorry. Yes, Morgan Knudsen. She is a motivational speaker, and also she uses fire acts in order to motivate people as well. And it will be a wonderful show, so tune in.
Yeah.
Well, you can get a torch show.
Yeah, they throw fire at me. I'm going to run. Yeah. Okay. I guess then we'll see everybody next week at the same time. So I want to thank everybody for listening tonight. This is Henry Foister.
Jeffrey Gould, happy birthday.
Barbara Duncan.
Tabby Cat Gash.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. See you next week at the same time. You've been listening to the Paranormal View on the ParaX Radio Network. Join us again next week at the same time for more of the Paranormal View.